of the time. But are you putting, hold on, Amber, but are you putting your energy where it's best used, or are you just spinning your wheels? I'm just responding to somebody who still believes in the whole activism, which is fine. I mean, I don't care that people do activism, but they're responding to a post of mine that I put an article out there. A Russian troll, so this is from Business Insider News, a Russian troll slayer went undercover at a troll factory, found the hundreds of Russians. So they're not the only ones that are out there. They're doing trolling. I mean, I'm sure that Russia has their carve in the market, their influence in the market, because they have something to gain from our government and who we have in office. So I wouldn't put it past, the Russians having a huge presence. And I'm sure also Mossad and Israel and other countries have troll factories that will go and try to influence legislation and influence people. Okay, and then these troll factories also get into the hearts and minds of a weaker population, of a weaker person. And so this young lady who responded to this Russian troll article was saying that she has been called a Russian troll so many times. Well, if you've been called a Russian troll so many times, maybe you are exhibiting characteristics of a Russian troll. Because if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, it basically is a duck. So if you're out there purposely causing division and causing fear and anxiety because you're afraid of the elements because of your own imbalances, then you're no different than a Russian troll that is fearful that we're going to have a president that's going to go against their policies and their procedures or whatever in other countries. And so what I'm trying to do is get everybody away from activism, and they actually exemplify well-balanced behavior instead of crying henny penny, the government's trying to kill you, and GMO and 5G and what else? And Monsanto and glyphosates are all going to kill you. What we're actually trying to figure out is how do you get your body inside well balanced so that way you're not projecting the fear of vaccines, projecting the fear of anything that's out there, because really it's all elements. That's what I've come to find out. That when I'm looking at like I was recovering from this weekend. And what was I recovering from? Well, I had a lot of activity this weekend. Okay, I don't usually hang out with a bunch of people all the time, and it was a long weekend. It was like Friday to Saturday to Sunday. It was a 3-day type of party where I was continuously around people on a continuous basis, breathing the air and hanging out with all the different types. And so, eating different foods and all of that. And so I needed a day to recover. And my body is so efficient that when you need a day to recover, well, I mean, like anything, when you work, you need to go and sleep, correct? Okay, so anytime you do anything that's a huge amount of activity and you're not used to it, and so you kind of upset the homeostasis, your body has to recover and then adapt, okay? So, so that's exactly what I was doing. But I noticed that when, I noticed that the processed foods, sugar, come lay down, sugar. I noticed that the processed foods actually gave me more energy than an apple or an orange would have. Okay, and I realized the reason why is because there's complex carbohydrates. There is obviously the sugars. Okay, there is micro and macronutrition in like a frozen pizza, in like an oatmeal. Okay, when you look up the ingredients, you'll see that there's minerals, and your body is made up of tons and tons of minerals and sugars and proteins and fats and water, and then your electrolytes. And so really, when you look at the elemental composition of the human body, and then you look at the food supply, well, the reason why we're playing this discrimination game, the reason why people are so afraid of vaccines and GMO and all these quote unquote chemicals is because they're over mineralized. But you're over mineralized with the wrong minerals. And when you're over mineralized and you have malfunctions in your digestive tract, you're not going to be absorbing the macro and micronutrition at the level that you should. And then you're seeing anomalies that are causing then malfunctions in your 11 different systems. And that's when cancer, disease, and chronic illness happens. because you're not absorbing the nutrition, you're not building up your immune system, and you're not repairing the weaknesses. So now you have weaknesses, and then you're taking in the processed foods. So this is why processed foods have become a huge, like, it's been demonized, because we have over mineralized bodies out there that have malfunctioning immune systems and malfunctioning systems. And so they eat a processed food or a donut or anything that would deem to be like junk food, it would cause them more harm, okay? When actuality, on a very well-functioning body such as myself, yesterday, I was so hungry that an apple, an orange, or a cabbage, or even drink my juice wouldn't have been enough. I needed to have the sugars. I need to have the complex carbohydrates. Sometimes you need meat, okay? I'm looking at these vegans and vegetarians. The reason why they're becoming vegans and vegetarians is because they have a very malfunctioning system. They're so weak that they can't handle the complex carbohydrates. They can't handle the diverse minerals and vitamins and fats, okay? And so they have to now go and compartmentalize and eat a piece of fruit. And then what happens is then they go and work out, okay? And so they manipulate their muscular system, and then they cause then big muscles. And so yeah, they might be ripped, but they're also, you can see the aging in their face because their cells are still dying. They're not really feeding their body correctly. So even though their muscles are ripped and they look all ripped and looked all, but they're aging. The reason why is because they're not getting in the right nutrition. They think that because they went from a processed food diet, a meat diet, to now a vegan and vegetarian, which is really not enough nutrition when you think about it. Eating only plant-based diet on a weak body makes sense on a weak body, because the weak bodies cannot handle the food supply. They can't even handle their environment. They can't even handle vaccines. Because when you become a vegan and vegetarian, you're aging and your body is so now malfunctioning, they can't handle hardly anything. So you play the discrimination game. And that's what functional medicine is they take individual biochemistries and then apply a specific type of methodology in medicine for specific individual bodies. It's like the individual education plan, IEPs in education. When you have kids that are learning disabled, slow learning development, slow cognition, all these different things that are not like up to par with everybody else, they have an IEP. I had probably an IEP back when I was in school because I had learning disabilities, okay? And so that's what functional medicine is. But now it's like it's becoming a thing, because I realize that they can't obviously apply a one-size-fits-all in medicine, because they have to apply to different biochemistries, because now you have so many viruses on bodies that are weak, they're now creating a lot more issues. And so now it's like they've kind of looked at the holistic industry, the allopathic, and then they're combining the holistic and the allopathic together, and now they call it functional medicine. But it's the same like dog and pony show. What can we do to discriminate against something out there? Oh, so you have an adverse reaction to nightshades? Well, they'll just keep nightshades off your diet. Oh, you have an adverse reaction to meat or to something of that effect? Well, we're just going to have you then eat this type of food, and then we'll apply this type of remedy if you have some kind of inflammation. And that's how they do this functional medicine. Because I remember somebody mentioned to me about functional medicine the other day, or the couple like months back, and I'm like, anytime it talks about medicine, it basically is saying that it's dealing with symptoms. Now they say, oh, we don't just deal with symptoms. This is what these functional medicine doctors, I looked on like on channel 1, which is Spectrum Ohio News, and talk about the Cleveland Clinic and everything, and they're implementing functional medicine. And they're like, oh yeah, we don't just deal with, the healing and the symptoms. We deal with the whole body. Well, when you're applying medicine to the whole body, you're still applying a type of targeted specific remedy, okay? But because, believe me, their whole thing is the Hippocratic Oath. Do no harm, don't induce pain. So there's no healing if experiencing pain is something that your oath is against. There really is no healing. Now it's really about what can we do to avoid certain things so you don't get inflammation? Because that's what it is. When you're dealing with biochemistries that are so different, it's because you're dealing with people who cannot handle their environment. And one person can be totally different than the other person as far as what they can handle, as far as either vaccines or type of foods or type of medicines, or even the type of procedures to deal with all of your different cancer, disease, and chronic illnesses. So that's how the allopathic and the holistic has merged together, and they call themselves functional medicine. And I have people, you know, on my Facebook that I've known for a long ass time that are in biotech, going from the pharmaceuticals, prescription drugs, to now like kratom, trying to promote kratom as if it was anything different. Oh no, it's the same thing in a different form with the same intent. Okay, kratom is just an antibiotic. All it is trying to, you know, take one addiction and then put you in another addiction. So you don't have opioid addiction. Okay, now you have a kratom addiction that's causing you now to then finally get off of that, because I belong to a kratom group that is trying to get off their kratom addiction. And they're having a hell of a time. And they're turning to supplements. They're turning to all the different pills and powders and all that stuff. Because they think that, okay, if we just replace our opioid addiction for kratom, and then from kratom to then supplements and all that stuff, and they're just basically spinning their wheels. But that's what functional medicine does. They replace one addiction for another. It may seem a little less pharmaceutical, but I'm sorry, you know, you take just as much garlic on a weak body, it'll have the same effect as Cipro on a weak body. Okay, there really is no difference. So then I figured out, yeah, the whole thing with the junk elements, there's no junk food, because I mean, it's all about balance, but you have to get your body balanced first to be able to take part in all of the food supply and not have an adverse reaction. The reason why a lot of you have adverse reactions to any of the food supply, anything that's FDA approved or fruits and vegetables, is because you have major anomalies in your 11 different systems and you cannot adapt to your environment. Okay, which means that you're always going to then have some kind of issue that's going to metastasize down the road, because you're not going to fix the weakness, because you're going to play the avoidance game. And then you're going to see your body slowly and then progressively and then even accelerating the degradation process. Just watch those guys in the flat earth that are also vegan and vegetarian. Some of you, we have mutual friends that are in the flat earth that are now going to vegan and vegetarian, working out like crazy, completely slamming the meat eaters and the carnivores. When you have to realize that there is a place for meat. Okay, now of course there's politics on how this meat gets slaughtered, but there is a place for meat. Not only protein, but also the hormones and the vitamins and the minerals that are very, very quick in its distribution. Okay, it's like a processed food. It has so much diverse nutrients and minerals and vitamins and all the stuff that the body needs in a very condensed form. Okay, but when you eat fruits and vegetables, it's like compartmentalizing the meat and compartmentalizing the processed food, and you're taking maybe a few minerals here and a few minerals there, and you have to eat so much fruits and vegetables to get the same amount of nutrients that you get in a processed food or in a meat or in a drink of sorts. Okay, and so people who are vegans and vegetarians actually are weaker. Just look at all your vegans and vegetarians. They're still aging. They're very, very skinny, or they built up their muscles so much that the way they look healthy, because that's the perception of health, is to have big muscles. And they're afraid of everything. And they think the government's killing them. Oh, you got to stay away from meat because it's going to save the planet. Bullshit. What's going to save the planet is actually getting your bodies well balanced, to where then we're not reproducing on mutated bodies, creating more mouths to feed that are still glitching and causing more issues in our society, where we become so much the best copy of ourselves. We're not reproducing, and we're not dying or aging and glitching. You know, a very well balanced human would not die and would not be reproducing, and they would live symbiotically with Earth, because they would probably produce way more than they're consuming. Right now, we're consuming a lot more than we're producing. And this is where all this fear of scarcity comes from, and why you have the politics and the whole immigration issues and the whole, oh, we're overpopulated. Some may say that we're overpopulated. No, I don't think we're overpopulated. I think that we don't know how to work with our resources correctly. And yeah, I mean, even when you have like Chernobyl, when you have something that happens like a major upset of homeostasis, nature does come back. Animals and people will adapt to all of these different upset of homeostasis. But you have to also bring in the right elements. Some people who are very weak will sustain damage from upsets of homeostasis in different areas. Okay? The whole point is not to feed into the discrimination game. And those of you who are totally afraid of the government, totally afraid of all the evils, all the imbalances in the world, you are actually imbalanced yourself. Because not only are you projecting that everybody's trying to kill you and the government's trying to kill you, but you're also contributing to the instability of your community because you haven't really got your insides well balanced where you can exemplify a well-balanced human. That's why I got away from the activism. That's why I say, hey, if you're going to, if you're going to do activism, if you're going to play that game, then you obviously want to take part in the death trajectory because you're doing nothing to keep your insides so calm and so, cool. And then you're not teaching anybody anything. You're teaching them to stay away from this and stay away from that instead of saying, hey, in the beginning, like with the J-Juice, you may have to play the discrimination game, but eventually you're going to get to a point to where you can handle your environment and you'll be able to adapt to it. At any given moment when there's an upset of homeostasis, you'll adapt to it. Because believe me, if there is some major event like comets coming out of the sky, yeah, we're all kind of screwed. But if we're having a progressive global warming where, yeah, the seasons are a bit more intense and we're going through some kind of like change, but just like the cycles of Earth, and it's not so extreme, then you should be able to adapt to that. No different than you should be able to adapt to than the new viruses because of the global changes that are coming to surface. And you shouldn't be afraid of the vaccines because then the government's going, hey, we're seeing a change in the atmosphere. We're seeing a change in the environment. There are a lot more pathogens coming to surface because of the warm weather and the water, okay? Like this toxic algae bloom. Dogs now can't even go in the water down North Carolina because of the blue-green algae that's coming to surface and killing the dogs. Because the dogs are really, really not very well balanced. And they can't handle that much of that amount of poisons. Now, if a dog was on the J-Juice and they were exposed to blue-green algae, would they be able to survive? Well, I'm not going to test it. But this is the thing, is that we should be able to adapt to the changing conditions in our environment, as long as it's not a major upset of homeostasis, like a bomb or like a bunch of comets coming at you all at once, or asteroids. So when the government says, hey, we have these new viruses, and yeah, and we, for weak bodies to be able to survive the changing of the environment, you got to have a transition process. What are you afraid of? Is it because you're weak? That's what it is. Is there people that are so afraid of everything, they're projecting their weakness onto everybody. You see it. They're running around with their freaking heads cut off. And then they're also dealing with cancer disease and chronic illness and going to the hospital and dealing with all of their bullshit, their health issues. So, I have absolutely zero fear of the changing environment. I have zero fear of Ebola because I'm doing the J-Juice. I understand how the elements work. Monsanto is not the problem. GMO is not the problem. Chemicals are not the problem. All they are is a conglomeration of elements that will impact a person who has a weak or strong system. All GMO is just this. All Roundup is just a conglomeration of elements. And if it's been EPA approved or FDA approved, it means that it's basically safe for the general population. Because if it wasn't, you'd see mass destruction. Oh, but no, you're going to see articles from potentially the Russian bots or somebody else that's going to bring up the experiments that had to happen so that way they can test GMO, they can test 5G to make sure that it was turned up at the right level so it doesn't decimate. Okay? When you do any kind of experimentation, somebody has to be the guinea pig, and it sucks. And this is what happens is when you do experiments, and the thing with J-Juice is it's not deadly. So what we would be doing with the experimentation was just testing to see, exactly what people have gone through, because it's all probiotics, all electrolytes, it's all micronutrition. There's nothing antibiotic about J-Juice. So the experimentation with J-Juice is very, very safe. People just didn't understand the healing process because they're so afraid of pain. And so they deemed pain as something bad, and that's how it got like this, negative connotation. But when you actually are testing cures on the market because you guys are afraid of your environment, and you're promoting fear around the vaccines, around glyphosate and Roundup, and you're being an activist against the chemtrails and everything else, you're actually creating and paving the reason why they have to go and do all these experiments that are utilizing antibiotics. Okay, what are antibiotics? They are a conglomeration of elements that basically stop the healing process. So the activists are actually the ones that are creating the reasons why we have these deadly experiments, as far as 5G, as far as the cures for either AIDS or for any other cures that are out there, whether it's a prescription drug or a procedure like chemotherapy. The activists are actually contributing to the reasons why we have these deadly cures. Okay? So, you know, you can continue with your activism, be afraid of your environment, or you can exemplify how well balanced you are to where we don't have to be fearful of the 5G. Because if we had a very strong population, they'll figure out what they got to do to make sure that you have high-speed internet and it's living symbiotically with the bodies that are out there. But yeah, you have so many weak bodies out there reproducing on weak systems, creating weak children. Yeah, you're going to see people have adverse reactions. And it's called from imbalances. So people don't realize that. Even I talked about, you know, empathy versus adrenaline and all the different hormones like serotonin and dopamine and all of that. When you have imbalances in any of those specific hormones, your behaviors are going to show it. So you're either going to be very full of oxytocin, totally empathetic, or you're going to be major like fight, like you want to fight everybody. Everything's a freaking battle. And those are the activists. Is they're so imbalanced that everything is a fight. They have to go and warn everybody, oh, the government's trying to kill us. Really, when it comes to it, it's like everybody has an imbalance. And imbalances don't discriminate against, you know, the government. Government has imbalances too. But they also have well-balanced people also. People in the population can be very imbalanced or balanced. Okay? So when you see people exhibit very extreme characteristics such as empathy, okay, and you know, I know somebody mentioned, like Charmaine was mentioning, like she didn't realize that, you know, when you're so overly empathetic, which is also, it can be, well, yeah, it's an imbalance and it can be something that's diagnosable. Yeah, it has to do with PTSD. There are reasons why people have imbalances in their hormones because of something that happened a long time ago that is manifesting in an imbalance in their behavior, and they're overproducing certain types of hormones. And it translates in what they say, what they do, and how they act. No different than when someone has trauma that brought up to surface adrenaline. Okay? So when you are exposed to like certain drugs or you're exposed to specific situations, your biochemistry is going to tell you exactly how well balanced you are or how imbalanced you are. And so then you start getting triggered. When you're very well balanced, you will detect somebody's hormonal imbalances or their indifference. Because you know when someone is like imbalanced, but they don't want, and they're also educated, they're not gonna, and they know, I mean, because there's some pretty smart people out there that know how to, when they're creative, they're very creative. And so instead of manifesting imbalances in love, or hate, or all this other stuff, indifference is a great cover. So that way you don't give anybody an idea of where you're coming from. So you don't mention anything at all. You don't say nothing. So there's those types of people too. So some people are not going to say anything too much of their politics or anything else. Some will just be overly empathetic. Others will be totally like fight or flight or highly adrenalized and activism. Others won't say shit. But they're steadily aging, but they know that if they come off as indifferent, nobody can hold anything against them. But there is a category for them. They're not well balanced. They're just indifferent. They're not going to give anybody anything to work with. All right? And those are the selfish types. And I've dealt with them too. So I've dealt with so many different types of people and all of their imbalances and how it manifests. It's a trip to watch. A well-balanced person can acknowledge without falling into the love and hate and all these different imbalances and the indifference. They just acknowledge what is, and then they progress and move forward, and there is nothing, you know, that they hate or they love about anything. They just know this is what it is. This is what it is. Either you take care of your internal universe and adapt to your external universe, or you leave with a bang. Okay, so I'm hoping that, you know, some of you will keep doing the J juice. And I mean, I get it that, yeah, we have this stuff with the whole Epstein's. I've been watching a little bit, and then people are dying and whatever else. It has nothing to do with us. What would it change for all of you that are into the conspiracy world and into this whole thing with the Epstein? What would it change if everybody was brought to justice? What would it change? Especially if you're reproducing children on very highly PTSD bodies, they're going to create victim and predators in the future. Why would it matter if anybody gets brought to justice or nobody gets brought to justice? It doesn't matter to me if everybody gets brought to justice or if nobody does. I don't even care, because it's not going to make a difference in my life at all whatsoever. Because no matter what, if we're not going to change our internal universe and stop reproducing kids on very highly traumatic bodies, then you're going to have the repeat. So it's not going to matter if you bring Epstein and Hillary and all the different people in the high levels of government to justice, because we're only creating new ones. So what's the point? So every single generation, you're going to have a new set of victims, a new set of predators. So then why would it matter? Unless you change your internal universe and you stop reproducing kids that are highly traumatized, okay, and you get your body well balanced and you exemplify well-balanced systems, we could actually change the future so we don't have to keep revisiting predators in high levels of government as well as predators in our general population, or victims. We're creating victims and predators because we keep reproducing on very mutated bodies. Okay? And so that's why I don't really care, you know, if he was suicided. I don't really care. I don't even care if Hillary ever gets to justice, if she even is guilty. I doubt she's guilty, actually. I'm thinking it's the Russians, and I'm going to buy into some of the mainstream stuff. But I'm thinking the Russians have something to say about this. And believe me, the internet has no borders, and there is no cap on anybody can say anything they want and plant seeds of destruction and seeds of fraud, as well as seeds of truth. And people are not going to know the wiser. They're not going to be the wiser. They're just going to believe anything they hear on the internet or see on the internet, and that's it. But I wouldn't doubt that the Russians would plant seeds in the American population to then demonize a specific politician they don't want in office. And so maybe, the Russians helped Trump get into office. Hey, but we're also influencing elections in different countries too. Every single country does that when they have a stake in who it is that comes into office to then create certain legislations that would then benefit or harm us. So, I mean, I don't see anything, and I don't say it's wrong, but you know, it's going to happen because that's how the world works as far as geopolitics. But as long as you're aware of it, then you stay out of it. But you're taking part in the activism, you're probably being manipulated by a Russian troll that's trying to divide your country. When you hate your friends and family because they're eating GMO and they're taking vaccines because that means that they're going to be shedding, you're just as culpable and just as guilty because you're not taking care of your body. You're going to be contracting cancer disease and chronic illness. You're going to be just as communicable, if not more. And then you just caused division. You caused hatred in your own community. Why not bring elements and bring everybody up to where they're supposed to be so they can handle the environment and then roll with the punches? And then create a stronger government, a stronger population, a stronger family unit. Oh no, but the activists have an axe to grind because they're so pissed off at their out of control or their inability to adapt that now they have to project all of that onto everybody else. And I'm sorry, but I don't buy into that. So you're going to see changing things in the medicine world. They're not going to call it, you know, they're going to call it functional medicine, and they're going to implement and merge together holistic allopathic, which are basically two sides of the same coin. People are still going to demonize elements and demonize cultures and demonize politics and demonize everything. Okay, because it really truly what I figured out is if the government wanted you dead, we'd all be dead. We would all be dead. We would not be here if somebody truly wanted us dead. Okay? But since you're alive, you have a choice. If you are alive and breathing, you have a choice. Cancer is just a programming in your body that you have every ample opportunity to change. That's all cancer is. It's just viruses that are not necessarily bad, but you haven't really upgraded your programming. So now another programming is coming in and taking over. So you have a choice. You can feed into the whole discrimination game where you want your kids and your family and everybody around you to live in a bubble, or you go and strengthen your insides as well as understand how the external environment works, and then you adapt to all the changing conditions, all the change in politics. I mean, that's what this whole thing with change management, this thing, change management and organizational development, like it's a new type of major, as far as major study, in college. Because when I went back to adult school, I went back to school from general education, from like community college. So I was at like DVC, Diablo Valley College, and then City College of San Francisco, and then I transferred to an adult college. And I did go to like JFK University, that was in Orinda, now somewhere else. And I did study psychology there for a couple classes. And then I did go to Chapman University, now it's called Brandman. But I went to Chapman and their adult division, and they had a major, a major, which is organizational development. And then they had emphasis like on change management, because they knew, especially when it comes to team building, organizations and companies need to learn how to work together, team build, and how to deal with changes in organizations. How do you transition from one way of thinking to another way of thinking? So I think a little bit of college did influence me as far as change management and transition, and then organizational development. And then I learned business process engineering and re-engineering and mapping out organizations to where you have a bird's eye level, and then you can see how every single department interacts with the other, and then you understand how functional silos where there's no cross-functional communication. And then I applied those same concepts to organizations, to then the human body, because they're really no different. And then I saw the bigger picture. Then we saw how IT and computers are no different than the human body. It's all like biotech, biology, and technology merging together. Why are they out of Northern California? I mean, I come from a household of biotech, of law, of psychology. That's like the perfect storm to figure all this shit out. California, as crazy as they are, yes, they are the hub of information once you put it all together and realize the connections they all have. Biology is no different than technology. It's just in a biological form versus a heavy metal form. It's all made up of the elements, the periodic tables, plus then bacteria and fungus and viruses. That's the only difference between the human body and then your computer system. And then you implement the business process re-engineering, you implement organizational development, implement change management. All of a sudden, you have a bigger picture of how this freaking world works. I'm putting it all together. You guys are putting it together too. And then you're seeing the fruits of our labors, because you're actually staying with the program of J-Juice. You're not jumping off too soon. And now you're seeing, wow, there is a difference in how I think and how I feel and how I speak. Okay? But you have to see how it's all connected. Right now, we're also compartmentalized because of ignorance. And yes, education, I mean, I have a lot of student loans. Okay? But education is expensive. I was willing to go into debt to figure out a little bit how this world works. And then I'm like, okay, I didn't get my degree because I got caught up in the insurance world and was lured into potentially being an insurance agency owner, which didn't come to fruition. So I instead created my own business, being a cold caller and building up other people's businesses and generate leads for others, because I was very good at just talking to people, anybody, and saying whatever I had to say to get the business, as long as it was ethical for the most part. So that's how I was able to make a living through all of my premenstrual dysphoric disorder issues. But yeah, so biology and technology are really not that different. The only difference is we're dealing with now, the viruses and the proteins and all that stuff that you wouldn't necessarily get into your computer, but you'd have on the body. Because when you think about it, again, the human body is made up of micro and macro nutrition and electrolytes and trace minerals, and then fats and proteins and waters and air and all of that, okay? And so the J-Juice is basically that. And I think you guys seen this where I did all the formulas. okay? That the pain, productivity, energy is directly proportional to what methods you're applying to deal with your ability to adapt. Okay, so if you're using the antibiotic probiotic method, then you're on a death trajectory because you're trying to stop the healing process. When you're actually dealing with Jilly Juice, you're taking elements that are completely aligned with the human body, the biochemistry, and then you're applying it. And then right now, since we're so imbalanced and so full of cancer disease and chronic illness, that you're going to have to experience an absolute homeostasis. You're going to have to experience pain. And then you figure out how to balance it out by using some painkillers, but not to where it overwhelms you and undermines your healing progress, healing process. And so this is why J-Juice will corner the market. Functional medicine and the allopathic holistic world cannot touch this. And they won't. They can't compete with this, and they know it because they're dealing with a very different model. They're trying to mitigate pain. We're trying to induce it. Totally different model, but induce it in a very structured manner. It's a controlled pain, not an out of control pain where you're like, oh my God, I gotta take a bunch of drugs. This is a controlled pain, okay, that you can manage and still derive benefit. But you have to stay with it to do that. What I want to see for all of you is you guys reverse the aging process. Some of you that look like you're in your 50s and 60s and 70s, I want you to look like you're in your 30s. That's the specific measurable results that I want to see. Somebody sent me a picture of black hair growing, you know, when they have white hair and now they're seeing black hair come into surface. And they know, and they're up in the dosage of J-Juice because they know the power of this, but it's going to take a minute. There's no way to know what exactly is going to get dealt with first. That's why we can't say, oh yeah, J-Juice is going to reverse your ALS, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. No, there's no way for me to know exactly what the body is going to deem as a priority. So you just got to roll with the punches. You may come into this situation with like TMJ, but your TMJ may not get addressed until later on down the road, or may get addressed right away. It just depends. So whatever symptom that comes to surface, whatever healing symptom comes to surface when you're on the J-Juice in the beginning, is what the body deems as the most priority, the most severe. So right there will tell you exactly what could be doing you in, is what the body is now trying to deal with first, because that is the most severe. That is the most priority that it needs to address first. Okay, but first it needs to get into your system, and first you need to get your waterfalls, and first you need to get things cleared through your pipes. And if you don't clear the pipes, there's no way you're gonna be able to absorb the nutrition. Okay, you need to have clear pipes to be able to actually derive benefit. And so that's why we're saying, okay, you got to get the waterfalls in the beginning, and sometimes it's going to be hard, and not everybody can get the juice down in the manner that it needs to create waterfalls. So you get constipation, and you have to find ways to then either drink the juice and get the waterfalls and just deal with it, or you do enemas and whatever you got to do to clear the pipes, because it's going to take some time to push all that poop out, because that's all. See, I realized that I could possibly be okay with only doing a little bit of shit every day, very good in it. But when I actually clear the pipes out of my body, I'm left hungry. I'm left wanting to eat stuff to keep then the minerals and the nutrients in my body. So even there's even a reasoning behind some of the poop that's left in your body. But then too much poop would then cause an imbalance. But too little poop, you need to then replenish your body with more nutrients, more minerals, more macro and micronutrition. Okay, so I notice a difference when I eliminate every morning and how hungry I feel late, especially with how or how, I don't want to say well balanced, how effective my digestive system is, how efficient, not even effective, how efficient. Because it's so efficient to where I have like no poop left in my system and I'm left hungry. Now I have to go eat something. I drank a cup of coffee. I had no coffee yesterday. So that was interesting. I had a slight headache, but I was also, recovering from the weekend. But that was a slight headache and that was it. And then I felt kind of like weak throughout yesterday. And then I ate some processed foods and I got my energy back. And I got up this morning, I'm great and everything. But yeah, so processed foods definitely do have a place for very efficient systems, because it is a very diverse, like a package of just everything. It's like an all-inclusive package, like when you go, I don't know, on vacation where everything's included. When you go to a grocery store and you have the bank and you have your prescription meds and your all of your groceries. It's like a one-stop shop. Processed foods like a one-stop shop. If you have to turn, again, if you have to turn to only fruits and vegetables, you have major mineral imbalances. And eating vegan and vegetarian is not going to help a person. It's going to change their program a little bit, but they haven't fixed the weaknesses from the over mineralization. And so fruits and vegetables are going to do really absolutely nothing for you. But then you eat like, you know, processed foods on a very imbalanced body that has issues, it's not going to do anything for you either. So it's the right recipe of elements, and that is the cabbage water and pink Himalayan salt, or kale water and pink Himalayan salt that's been fermented. Because you get the electrolytes, you get the lactic acid, you get the macro micronutrition, and you're cleaning the pipes, and you're fixing the weaknesses so that way you can derive benefit. And yeah, and the fixing the weaknesses is the pain process. That's fixing the weaknesses. It's the pain process. Okay? And then down the road, when your body becomes so efficient, then you're going to feel what it's like to have your body be empty of all the excess, and then you got to go feed your body more. And then what happens is food becomes cheaper. I can live off a whole thing of, I bought these burritos. They're processed food, yes. And I got 2 pizzas, one for my husband, and I think I ate one yesterday. And so you can buy like 2 or 3 things of processed foods, and I can have like 1 burrito a day. I could eat maybe 1 pizza a day, the frozen pizza. And that's all I really need. Maybe I'll have some cereal, drink my juice, poop it out the next morning. And you couldn't tell that I was eating all this processed food, because processed food is not bad on a very well-balanced body, because all it is minerals. All processed food is just minerals. That's all processed food is. And it's a one-stop shop. It's all inclusive. And so actually, when you guys become very well balanced down the road, where you're so efficient, where you're pooping everything out, and your body is so efficient, it's going to save you. A processed food is going to save you. That piece of pizza that people have been demonizing is going to be now your friend. That's what we're doing, is we're flipping the script on such a level. So just so you guys know, the vegans and vegetarians in our society, because even the ones that are on J Juice are not as strong as the ones that have a more diverse food supply. If you're doing J Juice and you're eating the chicken and the eggs, this is great. And let's say you're totally well balanced and everything is great in reverse, and you're eating meat occasionally, and you're drinking milk, or not drinking milk, but you're eating like ice cream, like I do. I eat ice cream. I have, you know, cereal and milk. I'll have an occasional beef thing here and there. But that kind of person is a stronger person than someone who is strictly vegetarian. And don't let the muscles fool you. People build up their muscles. They want to make it look like they're healthy when they're not. It's something to hide behind, because you see it in the face of the people who are working out. The face doesn't lie. Okay? And when you see the gaunt face, and you see how, you know, when you see the indentation of the face, and so the wrinkles and all this stuff, but yeah, they have great muscles. You know, they're hiding behind their politics, and they want to demonize and discriminate. Oh my God, the carnivores have high rates of cholesterol, but yet the vegans and vegetarians who haven't fixed their mutations are very, 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 very weak. Very weak. They're not going to last very long. Muscles only last so long. Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jack LaLanne, all of those workout artists. Okay? So, anyways, there's my monologue for the day. But you guys just stay on the J Juice. Just deal with the healing symptoms. I know it's not going to taste wonderful. If you have to just get a straw and do what you got to do to get through, you know, I have a support system, you know, my secret public Facebook group. You get the book. The book may have some stuff that I have to revise as far as the vaccine stance, but the recipe and the protocol is in there. And I know Kevin's working hard on trying to get the second book out, because I gave him all of my notes, and he's going to try to figure out how to put it all together. So he has a huge thing. So, I mean, I don't imagine, he may not be ready even after the end of August. Maybe he might be ready at the end of September. I don't know. I'm going to give him plenty of time, because this is going to be the book of all books, the next one that's coming out. But at least the first book that's out right now, that's only like $19.95 in the paperback, it has the recipe and the protocol. It gives you all of the steps, the shopping list, what to expect as far as healing symptoms. and then how to manage the healing symptoms, just what you'd use if you had like a rash, you can use a juice type of thing. And then you have the support group in case you had other questions that aren't asking us what Jilly Juice is going to cure, because we're not doctors and we don't try to help you manage your symptoms. Everything pretty much is in the book, and if you feel like your symptoms are too much for you to handle, then you call a doctor and you say, hey, I need to have something stronger then, because I don't want to deal with these healing symptoms, or I want something to help kind of manage it better, and that's fine. Call your doctor. Okay, we don't advocate anybody not going to their doctor if they feel they need to. So just, you know, stay on the juice, dudes and dudettes. Don't get off it, because you're going to see major benefits, if not now, then later. But you got to do it in order to get the benefit. Okay? So, and this is all individual. There's no way for you guys to know and get proof, because you guys are the proof. You guys tell us. And even then, we don't know exactly what people, you know, so that's why everything is individual. That's why you can't believe anybody, anything out there. You can only believe really how you figure out the truth is you look at the laws. Okay, there's natural law and there's man-made law. Man-made law tries to be very close to natural law. It has its ups and downs, but then nature, Mother Nature, will then keep it balanced. So if man-made law is really like conflicting with natural law, then you will see the population react to that. Love you too, Janie. Because death and life are the ultimate outcomes. And if you have an outcome of death, then obviously whatever laws you're applying, you know, is based upon your intention. So if you intend to die, then okay, then that's fine. But we're introducing something totally different. We're introducing indefinite life. Death is only an expectation if it tries to kill you. That's where death is only acceptable, is if something is compromising your life. Okay? So that's why you guys learn how to protect yourself, and hardly will you ever be in a situation, really, where it'd be you or the other person. Very rare, unless you're putting yourself in a position to where it's becoming you or the person. Which means that you're not going to be dealing with things that are like illegal. When you deal with illegal stuff out there in the environment, that's when it's between you or the other person. So you guys will figure it out. All right. Life, it's all about indefinite life. You guys have a good day. I understand about imbalances and hormones and all that stuff. And yes, you can be overly empathetic and so feeling that crosses boundaries. And you can be so full of fight or flight or so full of adrenaline that you're now an activist and all that. And that becomes something of an imbalance. So just pay attention to your behavior. Pay attention to who you hang out with. Pay attention to what people categorize as, you know, you are as something. So if they're calling you a Russian troll, if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it probably is a duck. Doesn't mean that you're a actual Russian troll, but you're being manipulated by Russian trolls. Okay? Or you're just so imbalanced that you are exhibiting characteristics of people who are meaning to cause division. You don't want that. Just do the Jade Juice. Exemplify balance. All right. Don't play the discrimination game. Talk to you guys later. Bye.